you spin this, you mad woman?
Google it. Google it.
I gotta. So you're claiming you have a protein source in your ear for
Yeah.
So then why doesn't everybody do this since the beginning of time?
I'm gonna start.
Come here.
After a gym session,
Yeah.
just start eating from your ears.
Yeah, or just like pick your ears and just feed it to random dogs and go to somebody's house and do this food source.
Oh my
You
god.
beautiful cat. Do you mind if I just pick my ear and feed it? It's a protein source. I'll tell you what they're gonna do. They're gonna knock you out.
Sit. Good boy. Here you go.
All right, so keep going. You pick your ear. You put in protein.
Just.
Yeah. So she's obsessed
Aubrey.
with it. Like, she'll come to me and she demands it. And I'm at this point. I'm at this point where she gets mad if I don't do it, and it's obviously weird, and I need to stop. And so I'm like,
Jesus Christ. Are you asking what other thing on your body you can feed the cat with?
Cat.
Yes.
Cat treats. So here's what I really feel like.
Oh boy,
this
Aubrey, you and I were vibing, we were connected, we were on the same page, and then you're feeding your cat from your head.
You know what I really feel like this call is, Aubrey? What I honestly, in my gut feel? I feel like I'm out with Garrett and he's introducing me to his new girlfriend. And I'm sitting there and we're all talking and you're telling it and Gareth is drinking a red wine laughing, going like, yep, I get it. And I'm going, these two fucking banana head deserve each other.
Or it's like this where I'm like, look, I met a girl. We have so much in common.
She's great.
She's great. She's a cat.
She's
she
way
likes to
younger
drink
than
beer.
me is what you
She's
should
way
say.
younger than me, which is
Decades.
great. Which is great.
Like I'm
dropping references that I think she'll know, and she's like, what's Wayne's World? Like, it's great. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just one thing. Little thing. Just, again, not a flag.
What is it, buddy?
Well, she just...
Wait, let's do this.
Okay, yeah, great.
Aubrey, we're going to play something out really fast.
All right.
Let's do this for real.
Okay, all right.
So Gareth and I are at
Catching up.
Great
Okay.
Yeah, that was really
Really
good,
fun
man.
stuff.
You know, my girlfriend, well, not my girlfriend, but this girl I've been going out with,
Oh,
she
yeah,
really
the
likes
Aubrey
the
girl,
show.
the young one.
Yeah, she really likes the show.
Should have her on.
Yeah, or, I mean, I think she just wants to come down and watch the taping one day. I don't know if she's ready for the camera, you know, she doesn't have the vest. But you know, the thing is that, like, everything's good, dude. She's from the same place as me. Like, we go out drinking.
She's
So,
from
yeah,
London?
No, from Milwaukee. So we have that.
From England? You just got a fake Wisconsin?
It's a confusing origin story. I'm not even sure, to be honest with you. But it's a bit of a mixed match. But
hold on, I'm sorry, 1 second. Yeah, can I get another beer for me and whatever?
I'll have a Malbec, please. So yeah. So
I'm so
anyway,
sorry. 1 second. Thank you so much. Yeah, of course I'll take a selfie. Really? So you like that too? Yeah, wonderful.
Oh, you like New Girl? You've watched? Have you seen the last season? Oh, okay.
They haven't?
No, or they haven't.
I'm
Didn't really
so
register.
sorry. Hold on. Nice to meet you, Steven Spielberg. I'd love to talk projects with you.
Oh, Spielberg, eh? Hello.
Keep going. I'm
Okay.
so sorry. Hold on 1 second.
Jesus Christ, you can't
Hello,
go out with Jake.
business manager?
Yeah.
It's done what on the stock market? Well, I guess we need
What's
to give
the
all
stock market?
We need to give all that to charity because that's my vibe.
Okay, clearly there was no one on the other end of that phone call. So she's great. And she has this cat, and I love this cat. Her cat's named Flavie. Like say Lavie, exactly. So French, which j'adore, is the language of love.
J'adore.
Okay, jokey. And so it's great. The one thing is that the cat and her, I guess, have this. They've developed this sort of thing where she feeds the cat her earwax, which I don't love, but I'm also willing to kind of like I really like her. Like, everything about her is great. Again, I mean, she likes sour beer. You know, she's down. She's great. We're hanging out in River West when I go back. So there's all that. But the cat, I guess, pines for the protein. I guess there's a lot of protein in your earwax. Nobody would know that, obviously. But she's feeding the cat her earwax. And I mean, I'm not saying there's. You know, she's got like a special nail, like she calls it the digger, and so she takes the
I
digger.
don't think you need to invent stuff. The story is as weird as it gets, Aubrey. Before the digger part, how did you judge you?
Oh, man.
oh yeah, it's weird. I completely own that. I'm a weirdo.
So, Aubrey, the question is now, we've set it up, we're all three on the same page. We got to get out of this behavior, correct?
Yes, yeah. And it can't just be a cat trait because she doesn't care about that as much. It's like she's obsessed.
So, I got my first pitch.
Go.
You've created a crack addict. You don't say to someone you love who is smoking crack all the time, well, let me give you less crack, or let me give you heroin. or let me give you this other pharmaceutical drug. You know what you do? You handcuff them to a radiator, let them sweat it out for 4 days as they barf in a bucket, and then when it's all
You're
over,
talking cold turkey.
it's a fucking cat that's locked in between
Cold
the walls
kitty.
of your apartment. You just say no.
Oh, you come on.
And when the cat gets close, you go, no! And when it goes to your ear, you go, we both made a lot of mistakes, but it ends now!
What? I don't care how we got here.
We got here because of my bad behavior, but we're going to get out of here because of my good behavior.
Aubrey, how long has this been going on?
Good question.
It's been about 2 years already.
Jesus Christ, Aubrey.
Aubrey!
Aubrey!
Now listen to me. I'm way too old to be a partner. I'm talking to you like you're my child.
Yes.
You listen up, young lady. Are you out of your fucking mind? You're feeding a cat earwax for 2 years. You stop this right now. We're not doing 3 pitches. This is a 1-pitch call. Aubrey, stop feeding your fucking cat your earwax. You hear me, young lady?
Oh my
I think we got a
God.
clip. I mean, we definitely got a clip.
Aubrey, do you? I'm talking to you now like a dad. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
This is out of line.
She can hear you very clearly. She's got nothing blocking it.
Aubrey, this ends today.
Oh my God.
I'll tell you what, honey. I'll drive up there with your mom. I'll take the cat from you. Mom and I will be there in the Oldsmobile. I'll leave Chicago after work today. I'll be there by 7:15. Okay? I will take that
Aubrey.
fucking cat and I will bring it back to Des Plaines where your mother and I now live.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying, young lady? It ends today.
Yes, sir.
It ends today. If you stick your finger in your fucking ear and you give it to this cat one more time, Livy belongs to me and your mom. Am I crystal clear, young lady? It ends today. Say it back.
This ends today.
Good. The other thing I want you to do, are you near that cat?
I'm not.
Okay. The second you get home, and honey, I hate to do this to you when you were a kid about some of my yelling. You look eye to eye to that cat and you apologize for your behavior. You say to that cat out loud, and I got certain friends, Eric being one of them, that believes animals can understand English. And he talks to them like they understand English. And then he goes, they're smarter than you think, brother. And I go, are squirrels smarter than you think? And he goes, you ruined everything. So I want you to look in that cat's eyes and I want you to say, I am sorry for my behavior. We are in a world of trouble together, and I'm going to be the adult that get us out of this.
Yeah, I think I needed to hear that.
Aubrey.
I needed to hear that.
Aubrey, you are in a cycle of madness, and we need to pull you out before it gets worse and worse. Who knows what else this cat's going to be begging to eat out of your body?
How old is the cat?
It's going to be dead soon.
She's
It's not
4.
approaching
She's 4. So half of her life, she has been thinking
Yeah.
that eating ear amber is normal. Yeah, honestly, I had little pitches, like you could pretend the treat comes from your ear, but I think Jake is right.
Let's hear your pitch.
Well, I think you're doing the Indiana Jones. You know, you've got the idol in the bag of sand. Again, a reference you're gonna have no clue what I'm talking about on Aubrey, but some of our
She's like the movie with Sean.
Yeah, I do.
yeah, exactly. She's like the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
No. Okay, we're talking. I think we're talking Raiders of the Lost Ark. So maybe what you can do is get like some kind of little like treat that is like in a little package that
put it in
looks.
your ear. Get
Well,
the
no, you don't
flavor
even
by
put it in
the
your ear. You just put your finger in the treat and then you fake dig in your ear, so we don't have to put treats in your ear because then you can be going to a rabbit care. And then you're sort of showing the cat that treat, and you can kind of do that for a little while. But I think what Jake's right. That's just methadone.
But do you
What we need to
hold
do-
on, do you have any other little guys? Because there's a fun thing to do.
That's really
So-
it. You sold me with
Okay.
your rage.
So I don't mind. I do think there's something really funny about putting them fake in your ears, but I still think that you gotta just go cold turkey. Aubrey, what the hell are you?
Yeah, I think I just need someone to tell me to knock it off
Okay.
and just quit cold turkey. I mean, it's gotten to the point where like other people know about it and it's weird, obviously, and they're like,
Yes.
judging.
Yes.
So,
It is.
I just need to stop.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
so at the end of the day, look, we're not really judging. If you knew everything that the old Garf man and Jakey J has done with stuff out of our ears to even begin, you would realize you're not the weird one, we are.
Yeah.
But it is time to stop this shit. And by a week and a half from right now, this thing's got to be a distant memory from your past when you went down a weird alley. But it's time to go to the street where the street lights are on and people can see what you're doing.
Yeah, unfortunately, Aubrey, I think we all know the truth, and Jake hit you with a heavy dose of it. And it's time to stop, not just for you, but for the cat, and just for anyone who you get close to. This is a flag. This
So,
is not great.
will you follow up when you had executed this? If there is a backlash from Libby, which there will be because you created dramatic, but when she's out of her phase of addiction, will you give us a happy ending update?
And maybe if we could get a video of the process of kind of getting her off the junk.
Yeah, that's
Maybe a video of Libby pining for the junk.
If she's going after your ear, will you film on your phone you telling her no?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, I will.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, Aubrey, we wish you the best. Good luck, but it ends today.
My God.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks for the
Thank
call.
you, Aubrey.
Hey everyone, producer Kevin here. This next call is a follow-up from episode 48 from last month called Me Like Brown Shirts and Money with Emily Hampshire. So if you want to have a little refresher, check out that episode and enjoy this follow-up.
Hey there.
Hi there. We don't know who you are, but we know this is a follow-up call. So why don't you bring us up to speed? Who are you?
Yes, I'm Chris. I had called a few months ago regarding the wardrobe faux pas I had where I wound up wearing the same shirt as one of my coworkers.
Oh, same shirt guy. You're a bigger
Right.
guy. You wear the same shirt.
There's one shop in the town.
Yeah, you're in a small town, and you guys have the same big and tall tastes.
You got it.
So, Chris, what's going on? The floor is yours. Catch us up.
All right, so a little update. So Christmas came and went. I got a couple of new shirts, and we didn't wind up getting each other gifts for new shirts, but we did wind up pointing out the absurdity of how we wore the same shirts. He had noticed as well.
Okay.
So we actually decided to work out a schedule.
You did,
Because we have a couple of shirts that we, yeah.
You have a shirt sketch.
This is amazing.
Okay.
Wait, who, was this with Emily Hampshire?
Yes.
That Emily was the one who kept saying, "Why can't you guys just talk?" And I think Gareth and I were with you, being like, "It's weird. It doesn't work."
It would be weird. How did this subject get broached?
We actually wound up talking, mingling at the Christmas party that we
Okay.
had, and well, you know, a little bit of alcohol kind of helped to loosen things up, you know, and so we.
Chris, who started it? You or him?
I actually did. He's a little more introverted than I
You
am.
fucking alpha dog. What'd you do?
I just kind of joked how I said, I like your shirt, and he's like, oh yeah, yeah. So we kind of like pointed out that he just kind of laughed about the fact that we both obviously have the same taste in shirts. So we just kind of.
And you guys kind of became buds.
It is bonding.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great news.
Yeah, it's great. Actually, we do hang out when we go to lunch. We'll go out and get lunch together on time.
This is the greatest follow-up in a while.
This is great.
So you guys have become the same shirt brothers.
Yeah.
That's what Gareth has been trying to do with me since we started.
I was hoping you'd wear big blue today.
I don't know why I did.
I know. You have 3 shirts. So, and what is it? You guys just literally you came up with a little graph or a little a spreadsheet where you get to decide who wears what shirt on what days?
Yes, exactly. So we have 2 shirts that we both have the same pattern for. So what happens is on
It's like joint custody.
Yeah. So on Tuesday he wears one pattern, I wear the other, and then on Thursday we swap.
Wow.
Now, do you guys? Is there anything written, or was it all verbal?
It's a verbal contract.
What a wonderful thing.
I love it. And can I make a suggestion? Because it sounds like you guys are becoming boys now, which I love, and I think was our dream, even though Jake and I did laugh at Emily's pitch. Since you guys are buddies now, why not either once a month or during Halloween week, why not wear the same shirt 2 days a week just to be big boy brothers? Be like the Bash Brothers.
Yeah, that would actually be a good idea. I guess for Halloween we could find a popular culture twin set, you know, from like a movie or something, and dress like that.
So, Chris, appreciate this follow-up. This is
Yeah,
incredible.
congratulations.
What an ending.
Yeah, way to go.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, all the best.
We're Here to Help is hosted by Jake Johnson.
And Gareth Reynolds.
The show is produced and edited by Kevin Bartelt, and the associate producer and editor is AJ McKeon.
Our social media director is Caitlin Tanwakio, and our video editor is John DeBruin.
The theme song is made by Oliver Raleigh, and you can check out his music at oliverraleigh.com. That's Oliver, R-A-L-L-I.com.
The album artwork is by James Fosdyke. You can find him on Instagram at James_Fosdyke, D-I-K-E. And if you'd like to see me do stand-up on the road, go to GarethReynolds.com.
And if you'd like to be on the show, email us your question at helpfulpod@gmail.com.
All of the advice given on We're Here to Help is for entertainment purposes only, and all listeners should be adults and make their own decisions.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Cunard. Discover the best of a life.
All right. Put my vote in. It's early voting in Ohio. I think it's the entire state, or maybe just Butler County. Got in, no one was in there, just kind of quick in and out. Got lucky. I think the polls just open on the 21st maybe, so yeah, that was perfect timing. Forgot to make a cooler, so I'm gonna go back home. I'm gonna try to do a bunch of grocery shopping. Gonna go to Jungle Gyms, Costco, Bombay Grocers.
On board Cunard's Queen Elizabeth. Visit iconic ports, enjoy locally sourced cuisine, and cruise through Glacier Bay National Park.
Right in Alabama, where a state Supreme Court ruling has thrown fertility treatment and politics into turmoil, that court decided that frozen embryos created through in vitro fertilization have the same rights as children, and the consequences were immediate. Local clinics stopped providing IVF treatments for fear of prosecution, including the state's largest hospital, the University of Alabama at Birmingham Health System. Patients and doctors have a ton of questions in Alabama and all around the country, and it set off a fresh political and legal backlash against conservatives heading into the November elections. Anita, walk us through some of the reaction and the implications of this Alabama decision.
Well, you're right. People are still trying to figure out what this means. This was sort of narrowly applied to 3 couples who had sued a fertility clinic in Alabama, the Center for Reproductive Medicine. and for inadvertently destroying their embryos. So they had argued that they were entitled to punitive damages under a state law about wrongful death of a minor act. So as you indicated, this has really changed a lot of things. A couple of lower courts had said that this was not the way it should go, that embryos were neither people nor children, but the Supreme Court disagreed. So we don't really know what's going to happen. We know what people think should happen. It's first of its kind ruling, and it's supposed to be somewhat narrow, but what you're seeing is states all across the country, even before this, trying to look at these laws that relate to sort of fertilization. And so what we're seeing is the reaction is people, like you just heard Nikki Haley saying, well, yes, this was right, and we should move forward. So the strongest reaction we've heard is what this will be for fertility patients that are trying to get pregnant. A lot of people are talking about abortion, but it's really more likely to affect those that are trying to get into clinics in the first place.
And there's thousands and thousands, if not millions, of families who've used IVF to form their families all across the United States, including members of my family too, I should say. So there are familial stakes, of course, political stakes. You guys, Vice President Kamala Harris, she drew a direct line between the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which Anita mentioned, and Alabama's Supreme Court ruling. Here she is at a roundtable on reproductive rights in Grand Rapids, Michigan on Thursday.
So on the one hand, the proponents are saying that an individual doesn't have a right to end an unwanted pregnancy. And on the other hand, the individual does not have a right to start a family. And the hypocrisy abounds.
Wendy, if the politics of Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs decision weren't hot enough, I mean, you heard it in the Vice President's voice.
Yes, it did. This just threw a match on the burning gasoline embers that were there from the Dobbs decision of 2022. The ruling itself was very surprising in that the language that Chief Justice Tom Parker wrote in the concurring opinion was almost like a religious sermon. He said, even before birth, all human beings have the image of God, and their lives cannot be destroyed without effacing his glory, which is not language you usually hear in a court ruling.
Human life cannot be wrongfully destroyed without incurring the wrath of God, said the Chief Justice.
Exactly. And so that seems, a little far afield from the sort of rulings that you're used to hearing from the court. But this could really backfire on Republicans because there are Christians, there are religious people of other religions, there are conservatives who believe that in vitro fertilization is a life-creating event, not a life-killing event, as the Vice President suggested. And they and Democrats who have been upset about Dobbs may now turn out to prevent state Supreme Courts in swing states like Georgia and Arizona from doing the same thing.
Well, here's the voice of Gabby Goydell, who's a patient who, on the very same day that the court ruling came down in Alabama, began daily injections ahead of egg retrieval in her own treatment. She's pursuing IVF in Alabama after 3 miscarriages and has been speaking to the Associated Press.
If I viewed each of those ones as children, that means that I would have lost, just in the IVF process, a lot of children, but that's the natural baby making IVF process. So emotionally, I can't view them as children. They're potential children, and they hold a lot of possibilities, but in my view, they're just possibilities.
Arthur, I hear Gabby as a would-be mother, but also as a voter, frankly, a woman voter in America. Wendy's right. The Republican reaction to this decision was really all over the map over the weekend. Senator Tommy Tuberville said he was all for it, but against it, but you need more kids, but that didn't make sense. Tim Scott, who's vying to be vice president, seemed to not want to talk about it at all. And then there's more.
Well, yeah, Republicans are not in Washington right now, and so there's not that much because there's fewer opportunities to force them to talk. And Tuberville, of course, you can always get a weird word salad out of him, but the woman who is getting treatment, that's a normal person, and this ruling is weird. And Chief Justice Parker, who wrote it and basically said we've got to go straight to the Bible to understand the meaning of the term sanctity of life, appeared on a podcast with a QAnon guy that was uploaded the same day that this ruling was posted. So this is just, it's not normal stuff, and it's terrible for the Republicans, and they know it, so they're not going to say much if they can avoid doing so.
Anita, not saying much, I mean, how effective can that be? I look back to all of the elections, referenda, state political activities that have taken place since Dobbs. Kansas, Michigan, Wisconsin Supreme Court election, special elections for Congress. As an analyst said to me just a couple of days ago, abortion is undefeated in elections since Dobbs. And this seems to go even further in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. It's going to be very hard to not weigh in, which is why you're seeing Nikki Haley and other Republicans sort of being put out there and saying, you know, people asking them questions. It's going to be really impossible as the election gets closer. You know, we've seen that abortion has been something that's really, the issue of abortion, I should say, has really energized Democrats, and they're using it in local races, in states, on the federal level, and not just the vice president and president, but all across the country. They're really using this to energize their base and try to get people out. They're simply not going to let Republicans not talk about this. They feel like, yeah, they don't have some winning issues. They want the economy and immigration to go better for them, but actually this is one they feel like they can really campaign on.
That's Anita Kumar of Politico. Wendy Benjaminson of Bloomberg is here, and Arthur Delaney, senior reporter at HuffPost. In Kentucky, a group of Jewish women, Wendy, who want to use IVF but fear prosecution under the state's abortion ban, sued that state in 2022 under its Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And they argued the Jewish doctrine states that life doesn't begin until a child takes its first breath. Sort of a religious freedom argument there. I contrast it with what Arthur said about the Supreme Court justice in Alabama. Is this headed to the Supreme Court?
You know, it could. It is certainly important enough to enough people that it could be headed to the Supreme Court. On the other hand, if you're a plaintiff's lawyer, you're going to take it to the same court that overturned Roe v. Wade in the first place. This is not an abortion-friendly court. This is also a pro-states' rights court. So
But would this be a court that would be willing to back up the notion that an embryo for life-expanding IVF indeed has effectively human rights?
Right. That would be the big question that they would have to answer. But the risk, because of the factors I mentioned just a moment ago, would be huge.
The opinion is really grounded in the
.com/Alaska.
This is the song Break My Soul by Beyonce.
Lawmakers in Alabama say they're working on a legislative solution following a state Supreme Court decision.
It ruled that a frozen embryo has the same rights as a child. So how do lawmakers want to fix the issue?
I'm Michelle Martin, that's A. Martinez, and this is Up First from NPR News. Tomorrow will mark the 2-year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. As the war continues, many are wondering how long this will go on. We'll check with NPR's Joanna Kakissis to hear how people in Ukraine feel about the future.
And a data leak from a Chinese technology company is giving the world a glimpse into the Chinese cyber spying ecosystem. We'll hear what the leaked documents reveal about China's hacking technology, operations, as well as who got hacked. Stay with us. We've got all the news you need to start your day.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Carvana, who wants you to know that you can shop for your next car the convenient way, 100% online with Carvana. Carvana has thousands of vehicles that'll fit all sorts of budgets. Visit Carvana.com to shop for vehicles the convenient way.
Life doesn't come with an instruction manual, but the Life Kit podcast gets you pretty close. Whether we're helping you tackle life-altering questions or just your everyday pickles, we've got deeply human solutions to your deeply human problems. Listen now to the Life Kit podcast from NPR.
In need of a good read or just want to keep up with the books everyone's talking about? NPR's Book of the Day podcast gives you today's very best writing in a pocket-sized show. Whether you're looking to engage with the big questions of our times or temporarily escape from them, we've got an author who will speak to you. Catch today's great books in 15 minutes or less on the Book of the Day podcast, only from NPR.
There's now some legislative movement in Alabama around a proposal to clarify whether a frozen embryo should be considered a child.
After the Alabama Supreme Court said that that's the case under Alabama law, at least 3 fertility clinics in the state have halted or restricted services this week.
With us now is Kyle Gassett with Troy Public Radio. Kyle, you were at the Capitol in Montgomery yesterday, spoke to lawmakers. What did they tell you?
Well, I spoke with State Senator Tim Nelson, who's an anesthesiologist. Now, he says he's sympathetic to those who are spending time, effort, and money to have children through IVF, and he's proposing a bill, or fix, as he calls it, for the situation created by the Supreme Court ruling. Nelson says he understands how the justices arrived at their decision by interpreting the previous law, which, by the way, was passed in 1872, but now it's time for an update. He even read part of the proposed bill out loud.
This just says that a human egg that is fertilized in vitro shall be considered a potential life, but shall not be considered a human life, a human being, or a person, or unborn child, until the egg is successfully implanted into the woman's uterus.
Nelson says that he believes that a number of his colleagues on both sides of the aisle will vote for this bill if it gets to the floor, because this ruling has created a real problem for Alabama.
Yeah, and it comes from the state Supreme Court from a lawsuit by 3 couples whose frozen embryos were accidentally destroyed in a clinic in Mobile. Now that clinic has stopped fertility treatment along with others.
Yeah, there are now 3 fertility centers in the state halting or restricting IVF treatment in Alabama. The Center for Reproductive Medicine in Mobile halted IVF services yesterday. In a statement, they said the recent Alabama Supreme Court decision has sadly left us with no choice but to pause IVF treatments for patients. Also yesterday, Alabama Fertility, the largest private IVF provider with 3 clinics across the state, stopped any new IVF treatments due to legal risks. And Wednesday, the University of Alabama at Birmingham Health Center, which is the state's largest hospital, says it's also halting some IVF services.
And this decision is getting a lot of pushback from the White House. What did the Vice President have to say?
Yeah, just yesterday, Vice President Kamala Harris laid the blame for this decision at the feet of former President Donald Trump, who nominated 3 Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade. She blasted Trump for being proud of the fact that doctors and nurses can be jailed for giving reproductive care, and that young women now have fewer rights than their mothers and grandmothers did. President Biden also weighed in May, calling the disregard for women's ability to make these decisions for themselves and their families outrageous and unacceptable. Nikki Haley also said that to her, embryos are babies. So this ruling really has made it into the presidential race.
Yeah, now you mentioned there are fewer options for fertility patients in Alabama. So what now? I mean, just wait for the representatives in Montgomery to figure it out?
Yeah, basically. We need to see where the legislation goes. Alabama Democrats have introduced a bill also that makes it clear that an embryo outside of womb would not be considered a human child, but they are in the minority in the state legislature. Now, Nelson, the Republican, just hopes his legislation will pass quickly so that Alabama's IVF clinics can continue to operate.
That's Kyle Gassett with Troy Public Radio. Kyle, thanks a lot.
Thank you, A.
Tomorrow marks 2 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Neither side reveals casualty numbers, but the dead and wounded on both sides are in the hundreds of thousands, according to Western officials. And Russia now has the momentum after occupying a strategic town in eastern Ukraine. As the war enters its 3rd year, how do people in Ukraine feel about the future of their country?
NPR's Joanna Kakissis is our correspondent in Kyiv. Joanna, how would you describe the state of the war today?
Well, Lee, until just a couple of weeks ago, this war felt like a stalemate of frozen conflict because the front line hadn't moved significantly for months. But a few days ago, the Ukrainians lost control of an important town in the east called Avdiivka. Russian forces overpowered the Ukrainians with a relentless bombing campaign. Avdiivka is a symbolic win for the Kremlin ahead of next month's presidential elections in Russia. And Russian troops are now advancing along several points in Ukraine's east. Meanwhile, Ukrainian soldiers are running low on weapons and especially ammunition. Now, where the Ukrainians have made progress is in attacking Russian military targets in Crimea, in occupied southern Ukraine. These attacks have forced the Russians to move their Black Sea naval fleet, and that has made the Black Sea much safer and opened up Ukrainian sea export routes there. Ukraine says its grain exports are now back to pre-war levels, so they are counting that as a win.
Okay, now you've been traveling in the east and near the front lines of the war. What have you seen there?
So we recently spent a lot of time in Kharkiv, which is close to the Russian border. Russia strikes Kharkiv nearly every day. It's Ukraine's second largest city. And so the city is trying to keep children safe there. That's why it's building entire schools underground. I toured one of these schools. Workers were just finishing it up, installing wiring and air vents and piping. It's supposed to open next month. Kharkiv has already opened classrooms and subway stations. These stations double as bomb shelters. I spoke with second graders who attend subway classes. Best friends Maxim and Ksenia told me they always ask their teacher, Ludmila Demchenko, the same question. Here's the teacher heard through an interpreter.
They ask, when will the Russians stop bothering us? The children just want to take a walk in the woods or to swim in a lake. That's impossible now.
Demchenko says her students just want to play outside like they used to before the Russian invasion, before they had to worry about missiles killing them.
In the last few years, the U.S. and the European Union have brought millions, actually billions of dollars in military and other kinds of aid to Ukraine. Here in the U.S., the next aid package has been blocked, though, by Republicans in Congress. How has that, Joanna, affected the way Ukraine defends itself?
So Ukraine does have its own weapons manufacturing capability, but there's no question it's still heavily reliant on Western support. As I said, some ammunition is running low, particularly artillery shells, for example. Russia, of course, is a far larger country with a far more powerful military, and it's been able to get around many Western sanctions, which were supposed to hinder its military. Later today, the Biden administration is going to announce a new set of sanctions aimed at reducing Russia's war-fighting capability, but also to punish Russia for the death last week of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny.
All right, that's NPR's Joanna Kakissis in Kyiv. Joanna, thank you for your reporting.
You're welcome.
Cybersecurity researchers have had some sleepless nights over the last several days.
They're digging into a major leak of documents from a Chinese technology company that appears to be conducting global hacking operations for the Chinese government.
For more, we've got NPR cybersecurity correspondent Jenna McLaughlin here to help us sort all of this out. Jenna, so what exactly is in the leak, and does it seem legit?
Yeah, so there are about 500 documents, and they're all in Mandarin. There's a lot of nerdy technical details in there. It got leaked to GitHub, which is a coding platform that's popular with programmers. But so far, cybersecurity experts I've spoken to say it does look legitimate. Based on their analysis, it looks like this is a collection of documents stolen from one specific Chinese technology company called Aisun. So they're a contractor for Chinese agencies like the Ministry of State Security and the People's Liberation Army. There's some public information on the company, but this gives us a really rare look into more of their sensitive business. The documents include marketing materials, details about hacking technology and some of their hacking operations, as well as some of their targets, and this is all work for the Chinese government.
So I gotta say, Jenna, I'm not too bowled over or that a Chinese company would be hacking for the Chinese government. So what about this makes it interesting and juicy?
Yeah, the revelations aren't exactly shocking, but it does give us this rare peek behind the curtain. I spoke to John Holquist. He leads intelligence analysis for Google's Mandiant. Here was his answer.
I think the most interesting part of this is we're getting a kind of a really deep look at the Chinese cyber espionage contractor ecosystem. But we are all the way into the organization. We're looking at their documentation, their chats, and you're getting a real unfettered access to an intelligence operation you just don't see very often.
Plus, he said that in cases where researchers have already analyzed a certain breach in the past, made some educated guesses about who was behind it, these documents can help them kind of fact-check their work. Holquist also said that learning about the prices of these operations is really interesting. He said apparently this company was selling hacked documents from NATO for only $10,000 US, which is pretty cheap.
Yeah, so who are the targets here?
It's not exactly a surprising list again, but it is pretty long. It includes about 14 different government agencies, from Western competitors like Australia and the UK to countries that have a closer relationship with China like Pakistan. It also includes pro-democracy organizations in places like Hong Kong, academic institutions. And there's some details about them bidding for a project to surveil the Uyghur people in Xinjiang. Human rights groups have strongly condemned Chinese government repression of this Muslim population. In fact, a lot of this tech company's work appears to be focused on surveilling and harassing dissidents around the world. That includes monitoring and hacking social media platforms like X, or what we used to call Twitter.
Yeah, the leak, Jenna, the leak. Who is behind the leak?
That's the big question. We don't know yet, but there are a few clues here. So the leak itself includes employee chats about low pay, other kinds of complaints. So there's this possibility that it could be a disgruntled employee. But it could be a really clever intelligence operation, or even a competitor within China.
All right, NPR cybersecurity correspondent Jenna McLaughlin. Jenna, thanks.
Thank you.
And we have one more story before we blast off. For the first time in over 50 years, a U.S. spacecraft touched down on the surface of the moon yesterday.
What we can confirm, without a doubt, is our equipment is on the surface of the moon, and we are transmitting. So, congratulations, IM team. We'll see how much more we can get from that.
Intuitive Machines, the company behind the robotic probe known as Odysseus, became the first private business to pull off a lunar landing. For more on this achievement, go to npr.org. And that's Up First for Friday, February 23rd. I'm E. Martinez.
And I'm Michelle Martin. Today's episode of Up First was edited by Susanna Capelouto, Mark Katkoff, Andrew Sussman, and H.J. Mai. It was produced by Claire Murashima, Ben Abrams, and Milton Guevara. We get engineering support from Robert Rodriguez and Phil Edfors, and our technical director is Stacy Abbott. Start your day here with us tomorrow.
That's because Up First airs on Saturday, too. Aisha Roscoe and Scott Simon have all the news. It'll be right here in this feed or wherever you get your podcasts.
The world of podcasts can feel overwhelming. We'll let you in on the easiest way to find your next favorite show. Head to npr.org/podcasts. From politics to pop culture to music and everything in between, you'll find a selection of shows that'll make you a super fan in no time.
The news can be disorienting, and it can be really hard to remember how we got here. That's why we started the Throughline podcast. Every week, we take you on a cinematic trip into the past to better understand the present. Listen now to the Throughline podcast from NPR.
Want to hear this podcast without sponsor breaks? Amazon Prime members can listen to Up First sponsor-free through Amazon Music. Or you can also support NPR's vital journalism and get Up First Plus at plus.npr.org. That's plus.npr.org.
With no fees or minimums, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than deciding to listen to another episode of your favorite podcast. And with no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank. Capital One N.A. Member FDIC.
From the New York Times, I'm Michael Barbaro. This is The Daily. Last week, when a civil court judge in New York ruled against Donald Trump, he imposed a set of penalties so severe that they could temporarily sever Trump from his real estate empire and wipe out all of his cash. Today, my colleagues Jonah Bromwich and Maggie Haberman explain what that will mean for Trump the businessman and Trump the candidate. It's Friday, February 23rd. Jonah and Maggie, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So last week, the judge overseeing one of the many cases against Donald Trump issued a ruling that, put simply, was a bombshell. The single most devastating penalty, really ever, against the former president. And that's what we want to talk to you about, the fallout from that ruling. And we turn to you, Jonah, because you have covered the case day to day in the courtroom for months, and Maggie, because you know Trump arguably better than anyone as one of his biographers. Jonah, just to start, remind us what this case was fundamentally about.
So this case is about fraud, and specifically the New York Attorney General accused Donald Trump, his company, of exaggerating the value of their properties. That includes golf clubs, hotels, apartment buildings. What the AG said that Trump did was take those things, say that they were much more valuable than they actually were, and as a result got better loan terms from banks, from insurers, profiting from what they said was fraud.
And in a lot of ways, the case became a stand-in for the broader question that has hung over him for years, which is he a fraud?
Not just did he commit fraud, but is he a fraud?
Is he personally a fraud, and is this empire that he built over decades and this public persona that he built over decades essentially built on a foundation of lies?
And, Jonah, we knew really early on that the judge in this case was finding against Trump. That happened months ago. And the question was always around the penalties that were going to be levied against Trump. So, Jonah, having covered the case day in, day out in the courtroom, just talk us through, at a very high level, what those penalties were, and then I think we're going to walk through them one by one in more detail.
Sure. So the first penalty is a cash penalty, and it's enormous. It started out as $355 million, so that's already a pretty sizable number. But then we're looking at interest on top of that, which actually vaults it all the way to $450 million.
Wow, nearly $500 million.
Right. It's just as simple as that. Donald Trump now owes $450 million from this case alone. There's bans on Trump running his company. There's bans on him getting loans from New York banks. And then they've installed a monitor at the Trump Organization, which sounds as if it's maybe a little bit less of a big deal than those other two, but in fact, as I think we'll talk about, is a very big deal.
Okay, I want to start, Jonah, with the eye-popping financial.
Okay, are you parking? Are you going? Yes, please go to Patel Brothers. I'm going here. Damn.
Which is how he is going to continue to present this. He is not going to present it as they came after me for fraudulent tactics. It's going to be, I ran a successful company and they're coming after me. And that's been every single one of his fundraising emails about this topic.
Right, I actually got one of those emails, Maggie. I want to read the language from it. This is from a Donald Trump fundraising email that came right after this finding. Do you support President Trump more or less after every single witch hunt, raid, indictment, and arrest that the radical left has thrown at him? He's saying this is like every single one of the other ones.
Well, part of his strategy, Michael, has been to smear all of these court cases with one facade, right? Which is that this is essentially the state coming at me. And so this plays into that, and you will see him continue to say that. However, to your question, it does take a bit of an axe to the self-image that he has continued to put out there, and I think you will see President Biden and Democrats focusing on that.
Focusing on how?
Focusing on it by highlighting that a court just found him guilty of widespread fraud. I think you are going to hear Democrats saying, this is how he ran his business, and he can't run his own business for 3 years. Why should he be allowed to run the country for 4 years? You're going to hear something like that. And they're going to try to tie it to the economy. The economy is what most voters vote on. And they'll try to suggest that he is bad with money. And because he is bad with money, he should not be in charge of the U.S. government and your money. And I think whether that will be successful or not, I don't know, but I think that's where this is going.
John, I want to turn to the idea of the animated, activated Trump base of voters who sees this penalty as the latest invitation to show their support for Trump. Technically speaking, on paper, could Trump harness that anger to basically fundraise his way out of the financial hole he's now in? Could he set up a legal defense fund? Could he ask supporters to basically bail him out of this?
Hypothetically speaking, 100%. He can absolutely do that. The one thing that I think he cannot do is tell people that the money is for a different purpose than it is. But if he's upfront about what this money is for, and given what Maggie said, I don't see that there's any reason not to be upfront. He can set up a legal defense fund and see if he can raise some money. Now, whether he can actually raise that money, and this is a good question for Maggie, I think, just for this particular problem, that's another question.
Maggie?
Well, it's money that, in theory, could be going to his campaign.
Right.
And so his campaign is already underfunded compared to President Biden's. And we saw that again in numbers that came out in recent days. So I think he is going to have to make choices if that's the route he takes.
Right, every dollar you ask someone to give you for your legal defense fund, in this case, is potentially a dollar that doesn't go to the campaign that, as you're saying, is already falling behind Joe Biden in terms of fundraising.
Correct. And so this is a low-dollar fundraising base that he has gone to over and over and over again.
His donors.
His own donors. And they've been asked to rise up and defend him over and over and over again.
Fatigue may be inevitable.
Right, and so at a certain point, there are choices that will have to be made with 8 months left of this campaign and him as the likely nominee. Just to think of this another way, this judgment alone, just the New York AG case, putting aside the E. Jean Carroll case, just the New York AG case is nearly $500 million.
Right.
A presidential nomination for a general election candidate, that campaign generally costs about $1 billion. So it's about half the cost of a presidential run in 2024.
So if you put them together, you're saying it's going to be a lot to ask the American people, even Trump's most fervent supporters, to hand over $1.5 billion, which would be the cost of a campaign, as well as bailing him out of this legal predicament.
It's a lot of money.
I want to turn to a delicate but really interesting question. What does it look like for Trump to run for president and potentially win back the presidency when he's basically out of cash? And does that create a new set of incentives for him when he's president that we should be thinking about?
Well, just on the simplistic level, he would get free housing and free transportation. So put that aside. It's so hard to answer because when he was president, starting in 2017, he never put the company into full trust. They stopped doing foreign deals, and his sons took over. But there were all sorts of foreign officials who stayed at the Trump Hotel, and that was seen as a backdoor way of getting foreign money to Trump. And remember, it's not just the second he becomes president. There's 8 months left of a presidential race where he's the likely nominee, and there could be foreign governments or foreign entities that are going to try to curry favor with him by doing deals now.
You're saying, if you're a business who wants to get in the good graces of the next president of the United States, this is a good moment because he's not president and can do a deal, and those companies would know that he needs money.
Correct.
I mean, I was going to say, just speaking very hypothetically, we know what Trump's past behavior is, and we know what the incentives here would be, and we're really looking at uncharted landscape in terms of what this might actually look like. I think that these are guesses. We should emphasize that they're guesses.
We have no idea what will actually happen, but there is a theoretical case.
They're well-informed guesses.
Okay, got it. We've talked a lot, Maggie, especially with you, about how re-election for Trump has been key to his plan for solving the legal problems he has in so many different cases. The idea is he could win, he could ask his future attorney general to drop the federal cases against him, the classified documents case, the January 6th case. Civil cases and local cases, like this case, would seem to be more complicated. So, does becoming president do anything to alleviate the unique burdens of this case and this penalty?
The short answer is no. I mean, one thing has absolutely nothing to do with the other. Now, you are correct. We have had any number of conversations about the impact that him winning a second term could impact the federal cases against him. There are two. But there's also two state cases, in addition to This particular case is a civil case. The E. Jean Carroll case is a civil case. There is nothing he can do about that. Now, could becoming president slow down the gears of certain things? In theory, yes. Again, we are facing such a new dynamic here with all of this, were he to become president again, that I don't even know how to fathom how this would work. But the short answer is he does not have a magic wand as president to impact these cases.
But in a way, you'd rather be president if you're in this situation than not be president.
I think he discovered through all of the legal travails he faced while he was president, it was better to be president than not.
But what's really interesting kind of about where we are now and what we're talking about is it is different for him to be after this case and in this moment facing actual consequences of this type where the penalty has already been demanded of him. Trump seems to face a lot of heat, but he always gets out of it. You know, he gets out of these bankruptcies. He gets out of the Access Hollywood tape during the 2016 election.
He gets out of the impeachments twice.
Exactly, yeah. But here, we already have the consequences demanded of him, and it seems highly unlikely, right as he's running for president again, that he's going to be able to get out of paying these things or dealing with them in some way.
Well, Maggie, Jonah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
There's danger out there. Every notification, swipe, social post, video, or selfie while driving risks your life. So while sharks might be scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Here's what else you need to know today. The mother of Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader who has died in prison, said that the government has refused to release her son's remains unless she agrees to a secret funeral that would draw no public attention.
Вместо этого они шантажируют меня, ставят мне условия, где, когда и как должен быть похоронен Алексей. Это незаконно.
In a video, Lyudmila Navalnaya accused the government of Vladimir Putin of illegally blackmailing her by, quote, telling me where, when, and how Alexei should be buried. Meanwhile, during a fundraiser, President Biden called Putin a, quote, crazy SOB, his harshest language to date for the Russian leader. In response, the Kremlin dismissed Biden's remarks as, quote, Hollywood cowboy-style behavior designed to win him the election. Today's episode was produced by Will Reed and Mary Wilson. It was edited by Brendan Clintonberg with help from Rachel Quester. Contains original music by Alicia Itu and Dan Powell, and was engineered by Alyssa Moxley. Our theme music is by Jim Runberg and Ben Lansford of Wonderly. Special thanks to Ben Protest. That's it for the Daily. I'm Michael Barbara. See you on Monday.
We made USAA insurance to help you save. Take advantage of savings when you cover your home and your ride. Discover how we're helping members save at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Support for Criminal comes from BetterHelp Online Therapy. Healthy relationships take work. It takes time and commitment to make any relationship. With friends, family, or partners, a great relationship. Therapy can help. BetterHelp makes it easy and affordable to talk with a licensed therapist on your schedule. Start the process in minutes and switch therapists anytime. Give your relationship some love with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/criminal today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/criminal. Support for Criminal comes from Squarespace.
Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that you can use to build a website and help people find your ventures. Whether you're starting a new podcast, teaching language courses, or selling handcrafted ceramics, Squarespace makes it easy to create a polished, professional place that connects people with whatever it is you're excited about. Visit squarespace.com/criminal for a free trial. When you're ready to launch, use offer code CRIMINAL to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Hi, it's Phoebe. I spend most of my time in a dark studio by myself, or on Zoom with the very smart people who I make these shows with. But starting next week, I'll get to be in a room with all of you, telling you about some of the wildest and most interesting stories we've come across since our last tour in 2019. A Criminal Live show isn't really like our criminal episodes, because we tell you lots of stories in one night, specifically chosen because they're fun to share in a room full of people. Criminal co-creator Lauren Sporer is up on stage with me too, mixing everything live and pretending to laugh at my jokes. We can't wait. Come join us for Criminal's 10th anniversary tour in February. Tickets at thisiscriminal.com/live. Hi, it's Phoebe. Whenever people ask me about my favorite past episode of Criminal, and they ask me a lot, I always have one answer. So, while we were deciding what episodes we wanted to share with you, while we're out on our 10th anniversary tour this month, of course we had to include this one. Thank you very much to all of you who came out and saw us live. We had a lot of fun. We're wrapping up our tour and we'll be back next week with brand new episodes of Criminal. But for now, enjoy Off Leash.
Hi, my name is Toby. I am better known in the media as the dog lady of Lansing Prison.
You know, people get themselves in predicaments in life, but you really got...
I did. And you know, I was a perfectionist. I never did anything wrong. I never had a speeding ticket. I never didn't stop and count for 3 seconds at a stop sign. And so I think I just saved all my stuff up for just one thing.
I mean, if you're gonna go big, go big.
I guess so.
Toby Dorr was born in 1957. She got married when she was 20 and raised 2 boys. In 2004, she was working at a veterinarian's office in Kansas City. She answered the phones and scheduled appointments, helped get the animals ready for procedures. She says she's always loved animals. One day, she noticed a lump on the side of her neck. She asked the veterinarian at the office to have a look at it.
And she said, "You need to go to a doctor right now." And so I did. I made an appointment and they did a biopsy and discovered that it was thyroid cancer. And, you know, even though thyroid cancer is a very treatable cancer, still hearing your name after the word cancer is devastating. And it kind of causes you to stop and take stock of your life. And I realized that I could go at any minute. And I had not done anything that made my time here worthwhile. And so I realized I didn't want to, you know, leave this earth and not have done anything to have made it a better place because I was here.
During her treatment, Toby didn't have much energy at all. She said she could barely pick up a book.
I mean, you were just like in this fog, like you were moving through 50 feet of water just to do anything. And so I spent most of my time in the recliner watching Cell Dogs on Animal Planet.
What is Cell Dogs? I don't know this.
Cell Dogs was a program that ran on Animal Planet for a few years. And it was inside of a prison, and they had dogs in there, and the inmates were training them. And then they were taking them out for adoptions.
And you like dogs?
I love dogs. That's kind of an understatement, yeah? And I thought, that would be my dream. I could make a difference if I could do something like that. If I could start a prison dog program, I know I could change the world. And my husband said, that's just a ridiculous idea. That's only a TV show. They don't do that in real life.
So Toby did the closest thing she thought she could. She started taking home the stray dogs that were brought into the vet clinic where she worked. After training them, she'd find them a new home. And then she got a call.
I mean, I had just started when someone from the Lansing Correctional Facility approached me and said, "Toby, would you consider doing a prison dog program?" And I was like, oh my gosh.
I thought you'd never ask.
Yes, that's right. I've been dreaming about that for months. And I had no idea how to build a prison dog program, but I just figured I knew dogs. I knew how to train dogs. I would just create it as I go. So I scrambled running around to animal shelters trying to find some dogs. And so on that Friday, which was actually Friday the 13th in August of 2004, I took 7 dogs into the Lansing Correctional Facility, and the Safe Harbor Prison Dog Program was born.
So the idea here would be that the inmates at the Lansing Correctional Facility, you'd leave the dogs with the inmates and they would do the training. How would it work?
Well, it was really important to me that my dogs live in the same cell with their handlers, because to me that was more of a home environment, and I didn't want them to get used to this artificial kennel environment when I was trying to adopt them into homes, and I wanted them to fit into the homes. So we put the dogs right in the cells with the inmates. They slept in the beds with the inmates, and anybody who was an inmate at the prison was free to pet a dog.
Toby quit her job at the vet clinic because she didn't have time for anything but the prison dog program. She had a barn on her property that she filled with dog kennels. She got up at 5 each morning and spent 15 hours a day shuttling the dogs to the vet and the animal shelter and the prison, teaching the inmates to train the dogs. So you interacted a lot with these inmates. This wasn't just dropping the dog off and then I'll pick it back up in a few months.
That's right. I spent a lot of time. I probably spent maybe as much time inside the prison as an officer that was on duty. it became my entire life.
What did your family and friends think about this program, your husband?
Well, my husband never was much on board with the program, and he didn't like as much time as I spent with it, and he didn't like the notoriety that it brought. So my husband resented it, but you know, we didn't have a good marriage, and it was just one more way that I did my own thing and he did his own thing. Which I never did come home and talk to him about anything that was going on because he wasn't interested in it.
How long had you been married?
We've been married for 28 years. So we met when I was 15 and he was 16, and we started dating in high school, and I never really dated anyone else. So we got married when we were 20. We got along, we didn't fight, and, you know, so we might as well get married kind of a thing. And there were several times in our marriage that I realized this had not been a good choice, but I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know how to make a change. So, I mean, one of the instances is we had just been married maybe 2 or 3 months, and my husband was gone every weekend to play golf with his friends, and he'd be gone for 8 or 9 hours a day, and I was really lonely because I was the oldest of 7 kids. And I was used to a house that was just bubbling full of things and conversations and, you know, so many activities going on. And now I was sitting at home alone on Saturday for most of the day while my husband went and played golf. And I felt so lonely. So I made some phone calls and found out where I could take some golf lessons. And when my husband got home this particular Saturday, I said, guess what? I found a place that I can take golf lessons. And he said, well, Toby, if you want to take golf lessons, the first thing you should do so that you don't waste your money is to find someone to golf with, because it's no fun golfing by yourself. And I said, well, I thought I would golf with you. And he said, no, I golf with my friends.
So you were lonely, and you figured out a way to... And these dogs certainly seem like...
Oh man, those dogs loved me, you know, and those dog handlers loved me.
How did you meet John Maynard?
Well, so I was walking into the prison, and I was walking across the prison yard when John Maynard walked up to me, you know, and he just approached me so directly, and most inmates didn't do that. But he just kind of swaggered up and stopped right in front of me, and he stuck out his hand and he said, hi, I'm John Maynard, and I want to be your next dog handler. You need me in your program, because I'm probably the best dog trainer you've ever met. And I was like, oh, okay.
Toby told him that he would first have to get approval from the warden, like all the other dog handlers. 2 weeks later, John Maynard was standing at the gate, waiting for her.
And I started taking dogs out of the truck, and I would hand them off to dog handlers. And usually I would just hand a dog to the closest person, say, here's your dog, here's your dog, here's your dog. And everybody was thrilled to get whatever I gave them. But John Maynard took every single dog out of the truck, and he evaluated them, and he petted them, and he looked at them, and he ran his hands over their coat, and he walked them around on a leash, and then he said, I'll take this one. And that was the first time anybody had ever been that direct. And so I was amused by that, I suppose is a good word.
What did he look like?
John Maynard was about 6'4", and he had a really lanky build, and he had red hair, bright red hair. And he kind of swaggered everywhere.
people. Use the gas.